Hey guys, Glizzy here, and in today's Destiny 2 video, we're going to be taking a look at the rarity of every title in Destiny 2 right now. There are a total of 19 unique titles in Destiny right now, and we're going to look at the percentage of players that actually own each of these titles, because some of these titles are super rare and they are getting sunset, so they are going to remain extremely rare for the entire duration of Destiny 2. So if you want to collect any of these extremely rare titles, I recommend you get on it now before November's release of Beyond Light, because they'll no longer be available. But yeah, if you guys do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button. But without further ado, let's dive straight into it. So all of our numbers are going to be provided from warmind.io. That seems to be the most accurate website when it comes to getting us the exact percentage of players that own each of these titles, and also the exact number of players that own each of these titles. We're also going to be using the number 1.1 million active players to get our percentages for today's video. But yeah, for our first title we have here, we're going to be working down from common to the rarest title in the game. The first title we have is the Dredgen title, with 66% of the total player base actually owning this title. This is definitely one of the best titles to go for your first title. Even though a lot of players do despise the Gambit game mode, it seems to be the easiest title to actually obtain, because it's not about getting hard stuff done, it's more or less just getting the objectives completed. So now moving on to our next title, we have the Wayfarer title, and this title has a total of 33% of the total player base that own this title. So if you are looking to complete this title, then you need to get it done before November, because this title will be getting sunset on November 10th with a lot of other content. So if you are trying to obtain this Wayfarer title, definitely get out there right now and start completing those seals. Now moving on to our next title, we have the Savior title. This title is from the Season of Dawn, and this title is no longer able to be completed. So if you haven't completed it already, then you can no longer obtain this title. But this title has a total of 29% of the total player base that actually own this title. So for our next title, we have the Cursebreaker title, with 20% of the player base that own this title. So 1/5 of the total player base own this title, and this title will not be getting sunset in November, so you still have time to work on it, and this number will increase since it isn't getting sunset in November. So from when I'm making this video in August of 2020, this number can actually change by 2021, and this title can have more people that have actually obtained it, since it will not be getting sunset for the future. So definitely start working on this title if you are out to get the Cursebreaker title. Moving on to our next title, we have the Almighty title, with 19% of the player base that own this title. So this title is from the Season of Worthy, so you can no longer complete this title, so it will stay at 19% of the player base, which is a pretty rare title. So if you have the Almighty title, then go ahead and pat yourself on the back. So now moving forward to our next title, we have the 2019 Moment of Triumph title, and this title in other words can be called the MMXIX title if you want to say it in Roman numerals, but it has a total of 17% of the player base that own this title, and this title is from the 2019 Moments of Triumph, so we can no longer complete it, so this title will remain at 17% for the duration of Destiny 2. So now moving on to our next title, we have the Undying title, with a total of 16% of the player base that own this title, and this title is from the Season of the Undying, so you can no longer obtain this title, which means that the title will remain at a 16% rarity, which is pretty rare. So if you do have this title, then again, go ahead and pat yourself on the back. So before we start looking at the rest of the titles, I just wanted to mention that all of the titles that we're going to be speaking about from now until the end of the video are going to be owned by 10% or less of the player base, so these titles are extremely rare. So I'm going to go ahead and add on the player numbers that own these titles too, so we can get the exact number of players that own these titles, so we can get a good visualization of how rare these titles actually are. So for our title here, we have the 2020 Moment of Triumph title, which is owned by 9.8% of the total player base, which is 85,000 players. That is extremely rare when you take a look at 1.1 million players, and only 85,000 of them own this 2020 Moments of Triumph title. So you can still go out right now and go obtain this title, but Moments of Triumph is coming to an end, so you have to be quick before it actually comes to an end and you no longer can obtain this title. So this number can increase, or it can actually just stay the same if Moments of Triumph ends moments, and not too many more people obtain this title. So if you haven't obtained yourself the 2020 Moments of Triumph title, or in other words the MMXX title, then go out there right now and complete it, because this title is owned by less than 10% of the total player base. So now looking at our next title here, we have the Chronicler title with 8% of the player base that own this title. So 73,000 players own this title, and this title will also be getting sunset in November. We're going to be losing certain lore books from this title, and we don't know if Bungie's going to be just pulling those lore books from this title, so you can still obtain it, but odds are they're just going to be sunsetting this title, and it's better to be safe than sorry. So if you are trying to obtain the Chronicler title, then get out there right now and complete all of your seals so you can unlock this title and be amongst the 8% that own this rare title. Next, we have the Unbroken title with 7% of the player base that own this title. So 67,000 total players own this title, and this title will not be getting sunset in November, so you still have time to complete it, which means this number will increase by next time we take a look at the percentages, because there are still players obtaining this title, and since it won't be getting sunset in the near future, this means this number will definitely increase as more and more people start completing their Unbroken title. Moving on to our next title, we have the Enlightened title from the Garden of Salvation raid, and this title has a total of 6% of the player base that own it, so 55,000 total players own this title. And again, this title will not be getting sunset in November, so you still have time to complete this title. So now moving on to our next title, we have the Flawless title with 5.3% of the total player base that own it, so 46,000 total players, and this title can be earned twice, so you can own this title from the last season, season 10, and then you can own this title again in season 11, so these numbers might be a little off from players that own this title twice, but this title is definitely an extremely rare title and a super hard title to obtain, so if you own this title, then you need to go ahead and take yourself out to dinner. Next, we have Riven's Bane with 5.3% of the player base that own this title, so the exact amount of players that own the Flawless title own this title also, so 46,000 total players own the Riven's Bane title, and this title will not be getting sunset in November, so you still have time to complete this title. The last Switch raid looks like it's going to be sticking with us all the way through 2021, so you have plenty of time to get the Riven's Bane title done, and as our light level just increases more and more, it'll be easier and easier to complete the seals inside of this title. So if you haven't obtained the Riven's Bane title already, then definitely start grinding on it now and get it done so you can be amongst the 5.3% of players that own the Riven's Bane title. So now moving on to our next title, we have the Conqueror title with 5.1% of the player base that own this title, so 44,000 total players that own this title, and this title is in the same boat as the Flawless title where you can own this title more than once, so the Guardians that own this title twice are probably throwing these numbers off just by a little bit, but again, this title is still extremely rare, and it's probably even more rare than what it's saying right now because of players that own it twice, so this is definitely one of the rarest titles in the game, and if you haven't completed this title already, then definitely start working on it if you are capable of completing this title. So now we are under the 5% mark, so all of the titles we're going to be speaking about now until the end of the video are going to be owned by 5% or less of the player base, so these titles are super rare, so if you have any of these titles, then man, you are a true gamer. So our next title here we have is the Shadow title, and this title is owned by 4.9% of the player base, so 43,000 total players own this title, and this title will be getting sunset in November, so if you haven't completed this title already, then you definitely need to start working on it, but by November this title is going to be one of the rarest titles in the game, so get on it right now if you are trying to obtain that Shadow title. So now moving on to our next title, we have the Harbinger title with 4.8% of the player base that own this title, so 42,000 total players own this title, and this title will not be getting sunset in November, so this means that this title's percentage will definitely increase by the next time we do one of these videos. So if you want to be amongst that 4.8%, then start working on this title right now so you can be amongst that very rare crowd of people that own the Harbinger title. So now moving on to our final two titles here, our next title now we have is the Blacksmith title with 4.3% of the player base that own this title, so 38,000 total players own this title. When you look at 38,000 and then you think about the total amount of players that play the game, 1.1 million, it's such a small number of players that actually own the blacksmith title. I haven't even went out there and completed this title yet. It's definitely a time consuming one, and it's one of the more challenging titles to get done. So if you have obtained the blacksmith title, then man, you are a true gamer and you have my respect and loyalty to you. But this title is definitely one of the rarest titles in the game, and it'll be sunset in November, so you'll no longer be able to obtain the blacksmith title. And in my opinion, it's the coolest named title in the game, so I gotta get on it and I gotta get this title done. But our last title of the video is gonna be the Reckner title. This title is so rare. I still barely see players running around with this title, and this title is owned by 3.5% of the total player base, so 30,000 players own this title. And again, when you look at the number 1.1 million, and then only 30,000 of those players own this title, this is definitely one of the rarest titles in Destiny, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be getting sunset this November. So there we have it, every title in Destiny 2 with their percentages and the total amount of players that own each of these titles. And also we did miss one title, and that is the Forerunner title. That title is time gated. It is the seasonal title for the season of arrivals, so I'll make sure I leave down in the comment section as a pinned comment the total amount of players that own that title, and also the percentage of players that own that title. And also I have a poll going on that you guys can find on the top right hand side of the screen, and if you would participate in that poll, it would just mean the most to me. I just want to know, how many titles do you guys own? You can either participate in the poll or just drop a comment. I would appreciate either or, and I just want to see where you guys are when it comes to completing these titles. But yeah guys, that's gonna do it for me in this Destiny 2 video. If you guys did enjoy this video, please be sure to let me know by slamming that thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for more. And I've been your boy T Glizzy. It's been my awesome viewers, and I'll see you guys in another. Peace.